already July. Can you believe that it's already July, and very soon we'll be celebrating independence. And you know, independence, our freedom, is something very powerful to celebrate. And it dawned on me a few years ago that it's one thing to be free from, but it's another thing to be free to do so. And so when we really acknowledge the freedoms that are in our lives, it's such a powerful thing. So we don't take that lightly. We give thanks for that. The month of July, I am creating a series where I'm taking an idea from a book. It's called Distilled Wisdom, where we can take that idea, an idea that in many ways was somehow revolutionary or introduced a really new concept or an old wisdom in a new way, and how does that and what does that mean for us spiritually? So today, when we embark on the book that I'll introduce in just a moment, I want to ask you a question. Are you more likely to thrive in an environment of appreciation or an environment of criticism? Are you more likely to be inspired if you are focusing on the problem or if you are focusing on the potential? And are you more likely to demonstrate that which you are seeking to experience if you are focusing on what you don't want or focusing on what you do want? I asked the questions, and some of you may have thought, well, duh, that's a no-brainer. Of course I thrive better in an environment of appreciation versus criticism. Of course I'm more likely to be inspired when I'm focused on ideas and imagination and inspiration and infinite potential and possibility versus circling around the drain of my problem. And of course, I am more likely to really experience that which I'm seeking to create if I genuinely focus on investing in what I want to create than being totally caught up in what I don't want. It really does seem obvious. And yet, so much of the time, we approach challenges. When we think about change, when we think about development, the common model and the common place to begin is focusing on what's not working. Now, of course, we do need to pay attention to what's broken and what's not working, but if you really, really think about it, so much of our time gets stuck just circling the drain, as I call it. It's what Einstein said when he said you can't solve the problem with the same level of consciousness that is holding and creating that problem and holding it in place. So a few years ago, a book was introduced based on a body of research, and it's called Appreciative Inquiry. Have any of you heard of this? Appreciative Inquiry, the positive revolution in change. It started with a PhD student. They really tested this model, started working with organizations. It says Appreciative Inquiry emphasizes inquiry into strengths and our assets. It's asset-based or strength-based problem solving or creating. So it emphasizes inquiring into our strengths, what does work, rather than exclusively focusing on weaknesses. So we're going to talk about this for a few minutes and to consider why it may be so important to us and why it may be something we can easily apply that can flip things over. Because the idea of appreciation and beginning from a place of gratitude is a very spiritual idea. The scriptures tell us to enter into the courts. The scriptures say we enter into the courts, we enter into the consciousness, we enter into the place in the spirit of what? Praise and thanksgiving. That through praising what is good, acknowledging what is working, and again, I feel like I need to give you the disclaimer, we're not saying that it's a put your head in the sand. It's not about ignoring problems. It's definitely not about rose-colored glasses. So you can just relax that part of your brain that wants to say, yeah, but. Has anybody already said the yeah, but's coming up? Just tell that to sit beside you. By the end of this, you'll pick it back up and talk to it again. You can educate the yeah, but a little bit. So it's how to be present to what we know needs to change, and how do we move forth in those things. And so we know that we can say not only in the Christian tradition, but in every spiritual tradition, the idea of appreciation and gratitude. Meister Eckhart said, acknowledging the good that is already in your life is the foundation of all abundance. What we know is that appreciation is the foundation of all what I would call blessed demonstration. That we're taught to work with what we do have. The scriptures also give another story that's almost like a Buddhist koan. It says, to the one who has, everything will be given. To the one who has not, even what they have shall be taken away. And that sounds very confusing. It makes no sense until you break it down to principle. You can only increase and work with what you have. If you constantly say, I have nothing, then there is nothing that continually gets increased. So this concept of appreciative inquiry builds on these things. In a nutshell, again, appreciative inquiry is an asset-based or strength-based approach to facilitate positive change and to build capacity. The power of appreciative inquiry is the byproduct of two words, two energies, appreciation and inquiry, working together, like hydrogen and oxygen that combine to make water, the most nurturing substance on earth. Appreciation and wise inquiry combined produce a powerful life-giving approach to positive change and development. Philippians chapter 4 says, above all, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is gracious, if there is any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think on these things and keep doing these things, and then the peace of God will be with you. Again, it's not saying ignore the bad, the broken, or what is not working. But what it is clearly doing is guiding our focus, because our focus will magnify. And that whatever we're focusing on, we're magnifying. And whatever we're focusing on, we're also moving in that direction. That's a really powerful thing to hear. I was actually introduced to this concept, appreciative inquiry, many years when I was in seminary. And I thought, well, it's interesting, and I saw the place of it. And then in my first ministry, I had a couple that wanted to meet with me, a husband and wife wanted to meet, and they were new to the church, and they just said, we just want to come in and talk to you and meet you. Now, I'm very clear I don't do couples counseling. I'm not trained for that. However, sometimes a couple winds up in my office, and that's what it turns into. Well, here I was, fresh out of seminary, and this couple who had just came to the church came in and wanted to meet with me. And in about 2 minutes, what they said was, can you help us? We cannot stop arguing. And I'm like, Lord Jesus, I was not trained for this. I did not sign up for this. We cannot stop arguing. And then the second person said, I don't argue. I just have an opinion, and I just tell you my opinion. And the other one said, don't raise your voice. I'm not raising my voice. I'm just passionate about what I believe in. And right before my eyes, I'm like, oh, yeah, you do. So in the end, I referred them out. However, in that moment, as divine order would have it, I had just learned some of the appreciative inquiry practice. And so I listened a bit and explained to them, this is not my forte, but let me just ask you this. I said to the husband, tell me what it feels like. Explain to me what good, when you're communicating well, what does that look like? And his whole energy shifted, and he began to talk about and explain, when we're communicating well, this is what it looks like. And all of a sudden, his wife began to relax. She's like, yes, yes, yes. And then I asked her, tell me, you, in your own words, when you're really communicating well, what does that look like? And she began to talk about that. And they could really see, yeah, we can do this. We actually do this a lot. We know how, that we have aspects of it. We do that. And so I basically said, well, do more of that and let me refer you out to a counselor for everything else. They didn't leave the church, though. They stayed, and I got to witness and know them on their journey. And they reflected back to me over time that that was a turning point for them, because it was the first time in many years that they had ever approached it from a different direction. Instead of, how can we stop arguing? Let's look at, how are we showing up when we communicate well? In a nutshell, the idea of appreciative inquiry trains us to begin to look at it and say, what is it that we have to work with? What's working really well? What do we know we both want and we're already doing that together? And what would happen if we began to magnify that? The author of the book, the authors, David Cooper-Ryder and Diana Whitley. David was a PhD student, and he began working with a lot of different organizations testing this theory. One of the organizations that he worked with was a quick oil change place, like a Jiffy Lube or something like that. It wasn't that, but a quick oil change place. He got called in as a PhD student because they fit the criteria. For 3 years, they had been surveying their customers. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell us what we can do to improve. What, if we did differently, would make your experience better? Asking those questions. For 3 years, they got the feedback. They did everything they could to fix problems, to change things, to implement new things. For 3 years, their revenues declined and their customer base declined. So beginning the 4th year, David came in. And he said, we're going to design a survey this year. We're going to ask completely different questions. We're going to ask your customers, why do you come here? What do we do really well? What do you appreciate about our services? What would you like for us to know that's been a positive experience for you? And is there anything else? They were actually very surprised with the things that people appreciated. They had no idea people actually appreciated a nice coffee station. They had no idea that a lot of the mothers of children actually appreciated a play area with some children's toys. They had no idea some of the things that people appreciated that they were already doing. So that year, the consulting firm said, you're not going to do anything new. Everything that came up as a top we appreciate, we're going to make it even better. Let's just put our resources in doing what we're already doing, and let's magnify and make it better. And for the first year, at the end of that year, their revenues had gone way up, their customer satisfaction had gone way up, but probably more importantly, the people that worked there had been totally transformed. They realized that they were doing things right. They realized that they were creating good experiences, and they already had something to work with that could make things better. Can you see how that could work in your life? And how that it is a deeply, deeply spiritual principle. So how do we cultivate an environment that begins with appreciation? The starting place for this, there are 4 primary steps. There's no way that we can really go into all of this, but to me it makes a big enough impact it's worth taking parts of it, pieces of it, and applying it in your lives to see if it makes a difference. The 4 steps, the way that it works, are discover, dream, design, and destiny. Number 1, discover. That whatever we're facing, whatever change, whatever opportunity, to begin by discovering what are the positive capabilities we already have? What do we already have that is good that we can work with? To begin to acknowledge it and appreciate it, begin to magnify and to notice what is already working and what is working well. And that begins to create a whole environment of appreciation. Appreciation for in the space that you're in, and appreciation with the space that's in you. If I say the term a negative Nelly, I hate to even attach a name to it, but you know what when someone calls that name, you know that energy. And then you also know the energy of a person, not an airy-fairy, not at all attached to reality, but a person who has deep roots and still has a sense about them that knows, it is well with my soul. There is good here. You see, unity is unique. New Thought is unique in that when we look at the individual state of being, much of society says that the individual is born into a deficient state called a sinner. Do you realize that we're saying that there's a theology that says that you come out of the gate deficient, sinner, something's missing, a problem to be fixed. It's a vastly different idea to say you came out a divine blessing. You came out the image and likeness of God, here to discover, to develop, to live it out. We're already approaching each other not as a being of deficit, but as a being of blessing. And so what would it look like if we begin to let that be in our very DNA and create environments of positive possibility? There's a true story about a man named Alexander. When Alexander was a young man, he wanted to study medicine. This was many years ago, but he didn't have the resources to do so. Unexpectedly, his Uncle John died. And when Alexander's Uncle John passed away, he left some money to John and his siblings. Alexander took that money and went to medical school. He was a very grateful young man. He became a researcher. He was doing really well, had his own research lab, and he had been out of the lab, and when he came back in the next morning, he realized the lab assistant had not cleaned the lab, and his first thought was he was very frustrated. Why didn't my assistant do this? Now I'm left. He said he started noticing he was feeling very resentful. But then it was like he could almost feel the spirit of his uncle. And he began to think about his uncle and the legacy he left and how he'd been able to go to medical school. And he said all of a sudden his spirit just changed, and he began to feel very grateful. And when his energy shifted and he began to feel very grateful, he said, I'm going to clean this lab. I get to clean it. I get to do this. And so he very mindfully, almost in a reverential way, began to clean the lab himself. He said while he was cleaning the lab, he noticed a contaminated sample had grown some mold. He went on to write, when I woke up just after dawn on September 28th, 1928, I certainly didn't plan to revolutionize all medicine by discovering the world's first antibiotic or bacteria killer. But I suppose that's exactly what I did. Sir Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin, altered the course of medical history. He said, had I not shifted into a state of appreciation, I don't know that I ever could have noticed it. It made me wonder what things I missed while I was doing laundry or dishes. If I'd have been in a state of appreciation, what might I have discovered? It's a real incentive for us to realize the greatest gift we can give ourselves is to do our best. You see, when you're feeling good, when your energy's high, when your life is going well, it's easy to be thankful. And it's easy to make positive, good decisions based on a place of feeling positive and good. But when you are feeling beat down, when your energy is dragging, when things are not going well and have not gone well for a long time, when you are really down, it is honestly very challenging to make decisions that are dreaming for genuinely investing yourself in something better. It's hard to make that jump. But that's the power of gratitude. You see, that's why gratitude is a spirit. Because whatever place we're in, the high highs and the low lows, Whatever place you're in, gratitude will meet you there. And when you move into a state of gratitude and you begin to give thanks for the things that you know can be true, the things that are true, for what you do have, something begins to shift. And so how are you being called to create an environment of appreciation within your own heart, within your own mind, within your own possibility thinking? So we discover, we dream. To dream now is to use inspiration and imagination to begin to vision that from the place of appreciating what we do have, we recognize what we do have to work with. And how will we begin to use this from dream to design? How will we begin to organize this to let's start moving into the direction of what it is we want? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, the way of peace is peace. The way to have more peace is to take what little bit of peace you've got and start working with it and moving forward. To take what you do have to work with and work with it. Put it into circulation. Put it into use. Put it out for good and watch it begin to appreciate. What we appreciate appreciates. Watch it begin to appreciate. We discover, we dream, we design, and we destiny. Destiny is where we become the expression of the very thing that we're seeking to have happen. It's also important, and we can do this in the lives of other people as well. Professor Ron Fry at Case Western Reserve University had studied appreciative inquiry. And he began to ask himself, okay, how can I apply this in my own life? And one day he noticed every afternoon his junior high school year-old son, every day after school he would ask your son, what happened at school today? How do most junior high students answer? Nothing. Nothing. The next day, what happened at school today? The usual, not much, nothing, nothing. He was a bit skeptical and he began to think, okay, I'm going to try it. So the next day he said, son, what's the best thing that happened at school today? He said his son stopped a minute and said, what did you say? He said, tell me, I want to know what's the best thing that happened at school today. His son had to think a minute. And he went back and he recalled something that happened during his lunchtime. And so the next day, the same question, son, what's the best thing that happened today? He said on day 2, his son said, I was hoping you would ask. He was already paying attention. He said now it's a practice for them. Son, his son now is much older. What's the best thing that happened to you today? Dad, what's the best thing that happened to you today? Isn't that powerful? So now another woman, Robin Stratton Burkessel, now she hears it from the two of them, Appreciative Inquiry, and she says, okay, I'm going to try it. So she tells her story. She's waiting for a cab outside of Union Station in Washington, D.C. She said, I'm ushered forward to this cab that is seriously beat up. She said, not just a little bit. That cab looked like it had been to hell and back. It was just beat all to pieces. I was a little hesitant, but I was ushered in the cab and it took off. She said, I was kind of nervous, but I said, sir, what's the best thing that's happened to you today? She said, I would not have imagined the conversation that unfolded. She said, a slender man with tight, taut skin over a chiseled face, steely gray, wiry, very closely cropped hair, raised his deeply set black eyes. They were watery, and he looked into the mirror and caught my eyes and said, ma'am, every day is my best day. I'm 91 years old. That was a transcendental moment for me. That beat-up cab became a sanctuary. This conversation became a privilege. For the next 40 minutes on our way to Tyson Corner in Virginia, I learned he was celebrating 65 years of driving cabs. He had fought in Germany, World War II, and then he came back and had enlisted in the Civilian Conservation Corps, and it helped build much of Washington, D.C. that we were actually driving through. She said, I was deeply honored and moved to be in the presence of this master, of this man, who had opened up his life, all because I had the courage to say, Sir, what's the best thing that happened to you today? When she got ready to leave that ride, he looked at her and said, and you should know, you're now one of the best things that happened to me today. Can you feel it? You can feel that energy. If we'd have the courage, I truly believe these are the practical things. It's great to align your chakras. I hope they're aligned. And it's great to be in balance, and I can even help you some. But if we're not showing up kind, if we're not calling forth the good, if we're not putting out our very best, I have to ask myself the question, what good am I doing? I want to be a practical presence of presence, the one presence every day, and I believe you do too. How many of you say you can count me in? Yeah, I know that I can count you in. Richard, would you give me that song? So when we begin to inquire, what is already working? What do I have to work with? Paying attention, learning to notice, inviting others to tell us about the good. What's the best in their day? What do you have to work with? When we begin to dream from that place, we begin to organize and design from that place. That's when we fulfill the destiny. We be that place. One more beautiful example. A man from the UK by the name of Frank Lund. Frank is an artist. He loves beauty. Frank cares deeply about the environment, and he lives near Brighton Beach, again in the UK. And it was just killing him that this beautiful beach was constantly being covered in litter. Now, I'm kind of the same way. Litter anywhere drives me crazy, but litter on a beach, that's like dropping litter in heaven if there's a real heaven. You know, it's like that's just paradise. And that particular beach was just constantly terribly littered. And it was weighing on his heart. Frank is this incredible artist. And so someone had talked to him about this idea of appreciative inquiry. And his first thought was, well, maybe I'll just organize where people can come out and clean up the trash, but then I'll know it'll get dirty again. I can, write letters to the politicians, and I'll do that, but that may be a process. And he began to think, how can I design something? So he forced himself to shift his thinking from the dirty beach and to say, I want this to be a place where people gather and come and enjoy. And while he was walking the beach, he looked around and he noticed there was also quite a bit of driftwood. And it hadn't been that long ago since he had watched the movie Pirates of the Caribbean. So all of a sudden, he had this great idea. He thought, what if I put out a call, let's build a pirate ship on the beach at a driftwood and call it the Black Pearl. I wonder what people would do. So he put out the call for that. Come on out. I'll help us. I'm organizing this. We're going to build a pirate ship. Would you show us the picture here? And so Frank did just that. They built this incredible pirate ship. Now, in the process, when the people were using and building something good, they automatically started, well, we don't want it to be dirty around here. Let's clean it up. To this date, it's one of the cleanest beaches in the world. This has been burned, it's been washed out to sea, and it gets rebuilt every single time. The people will not let it go down. It's become a rally cry and a demonstration for how we can presence something that is bigger than anything else. Appreciative inquiry is calling us to presence something that can be the biggest presence, being present to whatever needs our attention. To me, that's deeply, spiritual, and that's deeply timely. So how can you make it practical in your life? Would you be willing to find someone and ask them, tell me about the best thing in your day. Tell me what you love most about this job. Tell me what you appreciate most about this person. And to ask yourself, what is one small thing? How can I take what I've already got? What is one small thing I can magnify and enhance and do even better? Doing that may make a far greater impact than you even know. Because the greatest thing it's going to do is put you in the vibration of, I am here to be an instrument of goodness and of doing good. That alone is what's going to heal our world. Let's anchor it in a time of meditation with this song again that says, gratitude before me, gratitude behind me, gratitude to the left of me, gratitude to the right of me, gratitude above me, gratitude below me, gratitude within me, gratitude all around me. And I'm so grateful, 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 I'm so grateful. I invite you to close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, to allow yourself to sit a little more uprightly, to feel the strength of your own body. With our eyes closed, we begin this time by giving thanks. We give thanks for this life, this body, this mind. We give thanks for the opportunity to be here, a living expression. We give thanks for all that has made us into who we are today. We give thanks for the realization that no matter what we have experienced, that we can make use of it. Some things we vow to never do again, to never tolerate, to stand up for. Some things we vow to put into expression with our whole heart. We recognize that we have so many gifts in our life. We have love. We would not have lived this long without love. We have so many resources, so many blessings. And we also have the capacity and the perception to realize when things are not right. They're not expressing the way they could in a life-giving way. And so we ask to be able to see those things and to recognize those things in a way that allows us to be in service to goodness, to love, to transformation, to God. Give us the heart, the mind, the willingness to be the ones that find what is there, waiting to be brought out and shared. Let us be the encouragers. Let us be the ones that bring praise and blessing, that inspire acts of goodness and hope and charity. Let us be the light bearers unto our own self and unto our neighbor. And let us shine our lights in such a way that others genuinely desire to shine theirs. Let us bless and leverage our very best. And let us realize that every appearance of lack or limitation, every roadblock, every point of frustration is a threshold for potential. That's what Jesus meant when he said, we are the way, the threshold where the new will be brought forth. The Tao, the way. Let us be, let me be the place where new life, new ideas, new vision, new love is brought to life. Always building on what was always there. So take just a moment and identify one situation, one area, one relationship, one thing in your life where you would like to practice the art of appreciative inquiry. And so we commit to do our very best and to be open to the guidance and the blessings, the grace that flow through this. So gratitude before me, and gratitude behind me, and gratitude to the left of me, and gratitude to the right of me. There's gratitude above me, and gratitude below me, and gratitude within me, and gratitude all around me. So I invite you to open your eyes and smile. You see, smile lifts up that spirit of gratitude. And now let us stand. And I'm so grateful. 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 Gratitude before me, gratitude behind me, gratitude to the left of me, gratitude to the right of me, and gratitude above me, gratitude below me, gratitude within me, gratitude all around.